After saving two Apache girls, the cowboy is met by their mother with a strange reward. The desert was quiet that evening. The sky was painted orange and red as the sun slowly went down behind the rocky hills. A warm wind moved across the dry land, carrying dust and silence with it. Caleb Rourke rode his horse along a narrow trail. He was a quiet cowboy, a man who liked to stay alone. His face was calm, but his eyes were always watching. He had seen many things in his life, and he trusted very few people. His horse, Dusty, walked slowly, tired from the long journey. Caleb didn't mind. He had nowhere special to go. Suddenly, something broke the silence. A faint cry. Caleb stopped. He listened carefully. There it was again, soft, but full of fear. Someone needed help. Caleb turned his horse toward the sound and moved quickly but quietly. He followed the noise through the rocks until he reached a dry creek bed. What he saw made him tighten his grip on the reins. Two young Apache girls stood close together near the rocks. Their faces were scared. In front of them were two rough-looking men. The men were laughing, moving closer step by step. The girls had nowhere to go. Caleb's eyes became sharp. He did not like trouble, but he never ignored it either. He slowly rode forward. "Leave them," Caleb said calmly. The two men turned. One of them smiled in a bad way. "Well, look at this," the man said. "A cowboy thinks he's a hero." Caleb did not move. His voice stayed steady. "I said leave them." The second man stepped forward, trying to act strong. "Or what?" For a moment, everything became still. Then things happened fast. Caleb acted quickly, with control and skill. The men were not ready for him. Within moments, the danger was gone. The two men ran away, leaving the place in fear and shock. Silence returned. Caleb looked at the girls. "You're safe now," he said. The girls were still shaking, but they were not crying anymore. They looked at Caleb with wide eyes, not with fear, but with surprise. He stepped down from his horse slowly so he would not scare them. "It's all right," he said gently. The older girl spoke softly in her language, then tried to say something in English. "Mother," she said, pointing toward the deeper part of the canyon. Caleb understood that word. "Your mother is there?" he asked. The girls nodded quickly. Caleb looked at the path ahead. It was not an easy trail. The rocks were sharp, and the way was narrow. It did not look like a place travelers used. He thought for a moment. This was not his business. He could leave now and continue his journey. But then he looked at the girls again. They trusted him. With small hands, they gently held the edge of his coat, asking without words. Caleb let out a slow breath. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll take you." The girls smiled slightly for the first time. Caleb helped them onto his horse and walked beside it as they moved deeper into the canyon. The path became more difficult. The rocks seemed to close in around them, and the light from the sky slowly faded. It felt like the world outside was disappearing. Caleb stayed alert. Something about this place felt different. Too quiet. Too hidden. As they moved forward, he noticed marks on the rocks. Small signs, shapes carved into stone. He didn't understand them, but he knew they meant something important. The girls seemed calm now, as if they knew they were close to home. After some time, the narrow path opened suddenly. Caleb stopped. Before him was something he did not expect. A hidden camp. It was quiet, but not empty. People were there, watching. Men stood near the edges, strong and still. Women gathered close, speaking softly. Children peeked from behind tents and rocks. Every eye was on Caleb. He did not move. He knew this place was not meant for outsiders. The girls quickly climbed down from the horse and ran forward. They called out happily. A woman stepped out from the center of the camp. She moved with calm strength. Her face was serious, her eyes sharp and deep. She looked at the girls first, checking if they were safe. Then her eyes moved to Caleb. She said nothing. Caleb felt her gaze. It was not angry, but it was strong, like she was trying to understand who he really was. The girls stood beside her, speaking quickly, telling her what happened. The woman listened carefully. Then she looked back at Caleb. For a long moment, there was only silence between them. Caleb did not reach for his weapon. He stood still, showing no threat. Finally, the woman spoke. Her voice was calm. "You helped them." Caleb nodded once. They needed help. The woman studied him again, as if thinking deeply. Then she said something unexpected. "You will stay." It was not a question. Caleb frowned slightly. He had not planned to stay anywhere, but something in her voice told him this was not a simple offer. It felt important, strange, and maybe even dangerous. Caleb looked around the camp again. He realized something clearly now. This was not just a place hidden in the canyon. This was a place full of secrets, And somehow, he had just become part of it. Caleb stood still as the people of the hidden camp watched him. The air felt heavy, like a storm was coming, even though the sky above was clear. The woman stepped closer. The two girls stood beside her, holding her hands. They looked calm now, safe again. "I am Ayanna," the woman said. Her voice was steady and strong. Caleb gave a small nod. Caleb. He didn't say more. He never liked talking too much. Ayanna studied him carefully, as if she could see more than just his face. Then she turned and said something in her language to the others. The people slowly relaxed, but their eyes still followed Caleb. "You will stay tonight," Ayanna said again. This time, it sounded less like an order and more like a decision already made. Caleb looked around. He could feel that leaving now would not be easy, or wise. "Just for the night," he said. Ayanna gave a small nod. A young boy stepped forward and gently took Dusty's reins. Caleb hesitated for a second, but then led him. The boy led the horse away toward a shaded area. "Come," Ayanna said. Caleb followed her through the camp. As they walked, he noticed many things. The camp was quiet but alive. Fires burned low. People moved with purpose. No one laughed loudly. No one spoke carelessly. It felt different from any place Caleb had seen before. There were symbols drawn on the ground near some tents. Small stones were placed in circles. Feathers hung from wooden posts, moving softly in the wind. Caleb did not understand their meaning, but he could feel they were important. They stopped near a fire. Ayanna motioned for him to sit. Caleb sat slowly, keeping his eyes open, watching everything. A woman brought water and simple food, bread and cooked meat. Caleb nodded in thanks and began to eat. He had not realized how hungry he was. The two girls sat nearby, watching him with quiet smiles. They seemed less afraid now, almost curious about him. After a while, the sun disappeared completely, and night took over the canyon. The sky above was full of stars. The camp became even quieter. Ayanna sat across from Caleb. The firelight moved across her face, making her expression hard to read. "You came at the right time," she said. Caleb looked at her. "I didn't plan it." Ayanna shook her head slightly. "Some things are not planned." Caleb did not answer. He had learned long ago that life often moved in ways no one could control. A few older men joined them near the fire. Their faces were serious, their eyes calm but deep. They looked at Caleb like they were trying to understand something about him. One of them spoke quietly to Ayanna. She listened, then looked back at Caleb. "They say you are not afraid," she said. Caleb shrugged slightly. "Everyone feels fear." "But you still act," Ayanna replied. Caleb did not respond. He just stared into the fire. The wind moved again, and for a moment, the flames flickered strangely. Caleb noticed something. The people around the fire were not just sitting, they were watching him. Not like strangers, more like they were waiting. That made him uneasy. "Why am I really here?" Caleb asked. Ayanna did not answer right away. Instead, she stood up slowly. "Come," she said again. Caleb followed her once more, this time toward the far edge of the camp. The ground there looked different. The sand was darker, and the air felt cooler. Strange markings covered the rocks nearby, more detailed than the ones on the path. They stopped near a large stone. Ayanna placed her hand on it gently. "This place is not known to the outside world," she said. Caleb crossed his arms. "I figured that." Ayanna looked at him again, more seriously now. "For many years, we have protected something," she continued. Caleb felt a small tension in his chest. "Protected what?" he asked. Ayanna's eyes did not leave his. "Something that brings both danger and safety." Caleb frowned slightly. That answer was not clear, but it felt important. "Why tell me?" he asked. Ayanna stepped closer. "Because you are already part of it." Those words stayed in the air. Caleb did not like that. "I just helped your daughters," he said. "That's all." Ayanna shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "You did more than that." Before Caleb could ask another question, a sound came from the distance. A soft signal. The people in the camp became alert again. Men stood up quickly. Women gathered the children. Caleb turned toward the sound. "What is that?" he asked. Ayanna's face became serious again. "Others," she said. Caleb's eyes narrowed. "Bandits." Ayanna did not answer directly. "They are searching," she said. Caleb felt it now. This was not over. Not even close. He looked back at Ayanna. "What do they want?" he asked. Ayanna's voice became low. "The same thing we protect." Caleb looked toward the dark canyon beyond the camp. For the first time, he understood something clearly. Saving the girls had brought him here. But staying here, that might pull him into something much bigger and far more dangerous. The camp was no longer calm. People moved quickly, but without panic. Fires were lowered. Children were taken inside tents. The men gathered near the edges of the camp, watching the dark canyon. Caleb stood beside Ayanna, his eyes fixed on the shadows beyond the rocks. "They're close," he said quietly. Ayanna nodded. "Yes." Caleb could feel it now. Whoever was coming, they were not lost travelers. They knew this place, or at least, they were trying to find it. He turned to Ayanna. "How many?" "Enough," she replied. That answer told him everything. Caleb took a slow breath. He didn't belong here. This wasn't his fight. But still, he didn't move. Ayanna looked at him again, her expression calm but serious. "Come," she said. Caleb followed her once more, this time deeper into the camp, away from the others. They walked toward a quiet area behind large stone walls. The sounds of the camp became softer, almost distant. They stopped at a small open space. In the center was a circle made of smooth stones. Inside the circle, the ground looked different, clean, untouched, almost like it had been protected for many years. Caleb looked around. "What is this place?" Ayanna stepped into the circle slowly. "This is where we decide," she said. Caleb frowned. "Decide what?" Ayanna turned to face him fully. "Your path." Caleb did not like the sound of that. "I already have a path," he said. "I ride, I move on. That's it." Ayanna shook her head gently. "That was before tonight." Caleb stayed silent. Ayanna bent down and picked up a small object from the center of the circle. It was wrapped in cloth. She held it carefully, like it was something very important. She walked back to Caleb and held it out. "This is your reward," she said. Caleb looked at it but did not take it. "I didn't come for a reward," he replied. Ayanna nodded. "I know." "Then why give it to me?" he asked. Ayanna's eyes were steady. "Because you are the one who must carry it." Caleb's jaw tightened slightly. "Carry what?" Ayanna slowly unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a small stone. It was smooth and dark, but not like normal stone. It had faint markings on it, lines that seemed to move when the firelight touched them. Caleb stared at it. "What is it?" he asked quietly. "It is part of something older than this land," Ayanna said. "It must not fall into the wrong hands." Caleb looked at her. "And you think I'm the right hands?" Ayanna did not answer immediately. Instead, she said, "Those who are coming, they search for this." Caleb's eyes sharpened. "So that's why they're here." "Yes." Caleb looked back at the stone. It didn't look powerful. It didn't shine or glow. But something about it felt heavy, not in weight, in meaning. "I don't take things like this," Caleb said. "I don't carry secrets." Ayanna stepped closer. "You already do," she said softly. Caleb froze for a second. Those words hit deeper than he expected. He looked away toward the canyon. For years, he had avoided people, avoided responsibility. He lived simple, stayed alone, and moved on. It was easier that way. But now, he looked back at the stone again. The two girls stepped into the space quietly. They stood beside Ayanna, looking at Caleb with trust in their eyes. They didn't say anything. They didn't have to. Caleb let out a slow breath. "This thing," he said, pointing slightly. "What happens if they get it?" Ayanna's face became serious. "Then many will suffer," she said. "Not just us." Caleb looked down at the ground. That was the kind of answer he couldn't ignore. He reached out slowly. For a moment, he paused. Then he took the stone. It felt cold in his hand. The markings on it seemed still now, quiet. Ayanna wrapped it again in the cloth. "You must leave before sunrise," she said. "You will take it far from here." Caleb nodded once. "And them?" he asked, pointing back toward the camp. "We will protect what remains," Ayanna replied. Caleb knew what that meant. They would stay, and face whatever was coming. A sudden sound broke the moment. Voices in the distance. Closer now. Caleb turned sharply. "They found the way," he said. Ayanna nodded. "Yes." The camp was moving again. Men were already taking positions. The quiet place they stood in now felt like the last moment of calm. Caleb tied the cloth tightly and placed the stone inside his coat. He looked at Ayanna. "This path you talked about," he said. "It won't be easy." Ayanna gave a small knowing nod. "It was never meant to be." Caleb gave a faint, dry smile. Figures. He turned and began walking back toward his horse. The girls watched him go. Ayanna stood still, her eyes following him, calm but full of thought. Caleb reached Dusty and placed a hand on the horse's neck. "Looks like we got a job now," he said quietly. Dusty huffed softly. Caleb looked back once more at the camp, at the people, at Ayanna. Then he looked toward the dark canyon where the voices were growing louder. For the first time in a long while, Caleb wasn't just passing through. He was part of something, and there was no turning back. The sky was still dark when Caleb Rourke prepared to leave. The camp was quiet, but not peaceful. People were awake, moving in silence. They knew something was coming. The air felt heavy, like the land itself was holding its breath. Caleb stood beside his horse, Dusty. He checked the saddle, then placed his hand over his coat where the small wrapped stone rested. It was still there, still cold, still strange. Ayanna walked toward him. The two girls followed her, their steps soft on the sand. "You must go now," Ayanna said. Caleb nodded. "They're close." "Yes," she replied. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Caleb looked at her. "You sure about this? You're staying." Ayanna's face remained calm. "This is our home. We protect it." Caleb understood. Some people stayed and fought. Others carried things forward. He was not used to being either. The younger girl stepped closer and gently held Caleb's hand. She didn't speak, but her eyes were full of trust. Caleb gave a small nod. "I'll keep it safe," he said. Ayanna looked at him carefully, as she had from the beginning. "I believe you will," she said. Caleb mounted his horse. He took one last look at the camp, the fires, the people, the quiet strength in their faces. Then he turned toward the narrow path leading out of the canyon. "Stay safe," he said. Ayanna gave a small nod. Caleb rode forward. The canyon walls rose high around him as he moved through the winding path. The sky slowly began to change from black to dark blue. Morning was coming, but something else was coming too. After some distance, Dusty suddenly slowed down. Caleb felt it. He was not alone. He pulled the reins gently and stopped. From behind the rocks ahead, a group of men stepped out. They blocked the path. Their faces were hard. Their eyes were focused. They had been searching. And now, they had found something. Caleb did not reach for his weapon. He stayed calm. "You're a long way from anywhere," one of the men said. Caleb's voice was steady. "So are you." The man smiled slightly. "We're looking for something." Caleb said nothing. The man stepped forward. "A small stone. Wrapped. Valuable." Caleb's eyes did not move. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. The men exchanged looks. They didn't believe him. Caleb could feel the tension rising. The canyon felt tighter now, like it was closing in. But Caleb did not panic. He had faced moments like this before. He slowly moved Dusty a step back, watching every movement around him. The men moved closer. "Last chance," one of them said. Caleb's eyes shifted briefly to the narrow ridge above them. He had noticed it when he arrived. Loose rocks, a weak edge, a plan. Without warning, Caleb pulled the reins sharply and turned Dusty sideways. The sudden movement surprised the men. At the same moment, Caleb fired a shot toward the ridge, not at the men. The bullet hit the rocks. A loud crack echoed through the canyon. Then, the rocks began to fall. Not a huge collapse, but enough. Dust and stones dropped down between Caleb and the men, blocking the path for a moment. Caleb didn't wait. "Go!" he said, pushing Dusty forward. The horse ran fast, moving through the narrow path before the dust settled. Behind him, the men shouted, but they were slowed down. Caleb rode hard. The canyon twisted and turned, but he didn't stop. The sky grew brighter. The first light of morning touched the land. After a long ride, Caleb finally reached open ground. The canyon was behind him. The land stretched wide ahead, empty, quiet, and full of unknown roads. Caleb slowed Dusty to a steady walk. He looked back once. Far in the distance, the canyon stood silent again, hiding its secrets. Caleb placed his hand over the stone inside his coat. He could still feel it. This small thing had changed everything. He was no longer just a cowboy passing through. He was carrying something important, something others wanted, something dangerous. Caleb looked ahead again. The road was long, and now it had meaning. He adjusted his hat slightly and gave Dusty a gentle signal. "Let's ride," he said quietly. The horse moved forward. The sun rose slowly, lighting the land in gold. Somewhere ahead, more challenges waited. More people searching, more choices to make. But Caleb did not turn away. Not this time. He rode forward, steady and sure. A lone cowboy, now part of a much bigger story.